Want to do a video a little different than my average video. I actually had a meeting the other day with a gentleman that runs a school for the trade. Their school it's actually pretty impressive. They do electrical and plumbing and HVAC, and they dive a little deeper with hands-on stuff than the average trade school that I've come across. In fact, I talked to him. We might do a video soon going behind the scenes at his facility and maybe show you guys what that all looks like. I thought it was pretty interesting. But one of the things we talked about is how their school goes one step further and they connect the students with potential jobs or companies. They'll bring those companies in and almost have a career day, have interviews right there on the spot. And I just think that's so noble of the school, first of all. It led me to thinking of doing this video. Fast forward a day or two later, I was actually talking to a business owner, and while we were at lunch, they had someone call and ask for a little bit of information. They had a job applicant, wanted to know what that person thought of that previous employee. And I'm not going to get into all the details, but some of the things that were said during that conversation and after they got off the phone and we chatted about the situation and what all revolved around it, it made me decide to do this video. And if you're in the trade in any way, if you're in the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, some sort of trade, some of these things I think will help you in the long run if you take this to heart. Again, most of my content is for homeowners, but I think that this is a topic that's very important. It could change your trajectory of your career if you take some of this stuff to heart. I've heard it said that there's a lot of things that are taught in schools, but there's also a lot of things that aren't taught in schools. I've heard people talk about different things like, yeah, I learned the geography of all these different countries, but no one ever told me how to write a check or keep a checkbook or ledger, things like that. Folks talk about that all the time, how a lot of schools, they never learned how to properly do a resume or sit for a job interview, the do's and don'ts, if you will. And so my goal in this video is to go one step further and go through maybe some of the things that I wish someone would have taught me in my younger days, maybe in my immature days when I thought I knew better. And I want to go over 3 specific things that I think that if you catch this and you apply these philosophies, if you will, even if you don't agree with them, because some of the things we're going to talk about are going to be a little controversial, but these 3 things might actually help you in the long run professionally. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's dive into these 3 tips, if you will, for professionals that want to get ahead and not hit some of the roadblocks that a lot of the younger folks do. And the first one I want to talk about is during this phone conversation that my friend was having, some of the bridges that get burnt when employees come and go from businesses. A lot of folks don't know, but us business owners, we are sometimes friends. We see each other. We may not be best friends, although sometimes we are. But at the end of the day, even if they're an acquaintance, they may feel inclined to pick up the phone and call their friend who's used to employ this person and owns a business and get their thoughts on the matter. Now, I will say that in some states, there's different rules on what can be said during those conversations, what can't be said during those conversations. And so because of that, my friend was a little cognizant of that. And I think the question that was asked was, would you rehire this individual? And so it makes me think of some of the guys that used to work for my company, the way they left the company, the way they acted while they were at the company, and the fact that although I didn't burn the bridge, they did, right? I think we can all agree that if you were at a business, there are times when someone else can burn that bridge. It's okay if you didn't burn it, but someone else did. But I don't think that you should be the one intentionally burning bridges here is kind of the point. Now, if you live in a big city or you're planning on moving from the area and you're just dressing up your resume at different jobs, then fine. But folks that do live in an area where it's very possible that business owners do cross paths, they could be friends, they could be acquaintances at the very least, you doing things like burning bridges and not leaving on good terms could hurt you professionally in the long run. So that would be my first one. Just do your best to not go burning those bridges. I think if you're going to quit a job, I think there's a good and bad way to do that. I think now that I'm a little older and I'm more mature than I used to be, although I used to work for some very horrible bosses, one in particular was just a very immature, unprofessional individual who burned that bridge well before I could have. But even with that immature individual, had I left that job on the circumstance that I'm going to give you a notice here, whether that's 2 weeks or more, I'm going to have a conversation with the boss directly and explain to them, hey, listen, I'm just not happy here. It's just not a fit. I'm willing to work the next 2 weeks and hopefully leave on good terms. I'd like to think that we're going to cross paths again. And instead of it being weird and unprofessional, I'd like to say that I do appreciate the time that I've been here and it's just not a fit, that I'm going to be going my separate ways. I can think of some of the folks that used to work for me, and had they handled the situation similar to that, that would have certainly left a much better taste in my mouth, even if they weren't the best employee, if that makes sense. So don't burn bridges you don't have to. Number 2, I'll go one step further and say, do a good job while you're there. My friend had a guy that would come to work high. He would be late a lot. He would have a bad attitude, always seemed grouchy about things that he had to do for his job. And I think that there is something to be said for, even if you do give the company a notice, if you were a piss poor employee while you were there, it probably doesn't really matter that you gave notice and think that you're leaving on good terms, right? I would even go so far as to say that most good employees, that if they put in their notice that they're going to be quitting, if that company doesn't say to them, hey, what do we have to do to get you to stay? Then it might be a little bit of a sign that you maybe didn't do the best job, that maybe you're doing them a favor by quitting. Making sure you do a good job creating value. If you're creating value at that company, they don't want to see you go. Even if maybe you weren't the most perfect employee at all times, if you were the kind of employee that treated the customers and your coworkers in a professional manner, you created value for the company, chances are, even if you do leave that company and someone calls them for a reference, if that boss were to be asked, hey, would you rehire this individual? You would hope that it would be an easy yes. How good would that look as a reference? And then finally, number 3, my third tip I'll get to in just a moment, but I want to take a second and tell you about the growth groups that we've been putting together at my company. If you go to our website, New HVAC Guide, and scroll to the bottom, click on our growth groups, because we've been putting together some of the most awesome individuals in some of these groups. I actually just got off of a call a little bit ago with a guy. We were talking about some really cool stuff. It just fired me up just being around other individuals that are fighting the same fight I am, rubbing elbows with folks, guys and girls, that are out there kicking butt in our industry. So I don't care if you're in plumbing, heating and air, electric, whatever trade you're in, if you want to be rubbing elbows with other winners, go to our website and put your information in. We've got several different groups. We've got guys with bigger businesses, guys with smaller businesses that are just starting out. And I've even got one starting up soon with other YouTubers. We have mastermind sessions where we go through different topics, share our experiences, and hopefully help us avoid some of the pitfalls that some of us would face if we were facing them alone. Go to our website, put in your information, and we'll be in touch. And so finally, back to our 3 tips that I would give you. The third one would be your online presence. In a day and age where a lot of folks are putting all kinds of stuff, wouldn't it be great that you could just put whatever you want online and it not affect you professionally? The bottom line is it does affect you. In fact, a lot of companies have come out and said that they do check the online presence of an individual before they hire them. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't have a Facebook or Instagram account. I'm saying maybe you should at least restrict that content to the public level, so that way if a company were to go check you out, they don't see something controversial or unprofessional on your account. Now, you may say, well, Josh, I don't think it's fair that a company's going to look at my social media and judge me over that. Or I don't think it's fair that a company's going to not hire me because some other joker that I used to work for didn't have anything nice to say about me. I don't think any of these things are fair. I might agree with you on some of those cases, but I'm just being honest with you that if you want to excel in this profession or any profession, these are some of the things you need to keep in mind. Your online presence on a social media platform is you being on a stage with an audience and you showing things to that audience that you want them to see. Do you want them to see things that they're going to judge you for? Or do you want them to see things that they go, oh, looks like they had a good time last week on that trip. Seems like a professional individual. This looks like someone I want to hire. So that's my 3. What are your thoughts? Did I miss something? Do you disagree with any of this? Leave us a comment down below. I'd love to hear about that. If you like this video, I think you'll like this one even more. It's where I go over 6 things that limit your options if you're upgrading your HVAC system. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.